We told you about this first at 4. More than 50 people forced to evacuate, leaving everything they own behind, and now many of them have nowhere to live.
New at 6, we're learning more about the people who have been displaced after part of their apartment building collapsed last week. Our Aria Janelle was in Akron trying to find out what the city and the landlord are doing here, if anything at all, to help.
The people that live here at the Parkside Apartments on South Main Street tell me they're angry. They say no one is trying to help them find anywhere to stay, and they believe it's because of their past actions.
Everybody has a past of some sort. What they did was what they did. It's not who they are as people.
Raina Ward is asking for help and compassion after her apartment building was deemed in imminent danger after it partially collapsed earlier this month. Just last week, she and about 60 other people were forced to leave their homes because of it.
And it came with a dozen police officers knocking on everybody's door, pretty much saying, grab what you can, grab your pets, grab your medicine, grab so forth, and hurry up and get out of here.
According to the city, they loaded the residents into a bus by Metro RTA and took those who didn't have a place to stay to an overnight shelter, but the residents say they haven't heard from them since. Jimmy Reeves is the apartment's maintenance man and tells me he doesn't believe the building is a danger.
We contacted Red Cross, United Way, and everybody, and they turned us all down. And that's not, that's not right. That's not going to fly. Government puts all this money into this programs to help people like us in these times of needs, and we're not getting nothing.
When our team contacted the city, they told us any residents that need help should call 211 for resources. I also asked them what should be done about left behind medication and animals. I was told they should contact the owner of the building. When I asked the residents if they spoke to the landlord and owner, I was told he was still inside the building.
He's on house arrest. He can't leave his office.
According to court records, Robert Johnson is the landlord and the owner of the building and is currently on house arrest for several charges, including felonious assault, 2 counts of kidnapping, and resisting arrest. We tried to get a hold of Johnson, but the resident said his phone was disconnected.
We got people here that's on probation, trying to restart their lives after prison, and that's the way they look at it. They look at us like we're like scum.
The 19 News team also found that there are currently more than 20 registered sex offenders who have the Parkside Apartments listed as their home. According to the state of Ohio, offenders must let the sheriff's office know immediately if they move, even if it's not to a specific location. We reached out to the sheriff's office to see if they know where these people are, but haven't heard back. We did receive this statement from the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction, saying, quote, the Adult Parole Authority has been working with local authorities regarding the 9 individuals who are under the supervision. These individuals have all been accounted for, and the APA will continue to supervise them appropriately. But despite their past, the Parkside residents believe they should still have somewhere to live, even if that means living in these apartments until something else is figured out.
I don't understand why, if they're trying to do better, why the officials in the city just won't let us be, because we are doing better.
In Akron, I'm Aria Janelle, 19 News.